All right, Nick, let's talk about the Houston Texans. Made it to the playoffs, looked good, but unfortunately bow out a little bit too early. Not a chance for them to even really make it to the AFC title game. This is a team that I think they need a little bit more something. I think CJ Stroud needs a little bit more protection to help get them in the deeper rounds of the playoffs. We have a very interesting move that has popped up involving the Texans doing just that, protecting CJ Stroud. But before we get to that, I'm Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, Texans looking to get CJ Stroud a little bit more protection across the offensive line. Let's get into the article, and we can talk more about it on the other side. This, of course, is over from SI.com. It says, who could Houston target to be an impact addition on the line? There's one name that has been suggested. ESPN's Benjamin Solak has suggested that the Texans could look into trying to steal future Hall of Famer offensive lineman Zack Martin away from the Dallas Cowboys. There's been speculation Martin could retire this offseason, but if he doesn't, he would be an elite target for Houston. It says high expectations weren't met in 2024, and the Texans will scramble to fix their offensive line accordingly. If Dallas's Zack Martin doesn't retire, he's a great candidate to fill a guard spot in Houston. Again, from Benjamin Solak at ESPN. Nick, I think this is a really fantastic move for the Texans. It would help round out this offensive line beautifully. I think it would be just probably one of the better moves that they could make to get things going here. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this one. But before we get to you, Texans fans, in the comment section below, is that what you need? Do you think you need more help across the offensive line, or would big trades and free agency moves be used better elsewhere? Let us know, what do you think needs to be built up on this team to make that deep, deep playoff push that we're wanting to see in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts here on this potential Martin move to the Texans?
Well, it makes sense for both teams because Zack Martin, again, assuming he doesn't retire, and I honestly don't think he is. I think he wants to chase another opportunity to get a championship or two, right? He hasn't had a chance to get one throughout his entire phenomenal career. I think he doesn't want to hang it up. I think he either wants to get another year or two with Dallas or a year or two with Houston. I think he wants to kind of do what the Cowboys did with Jason Witten, where he went on to the Raiders for a little bit, then came back. Like he wants another bite at the apple. I don't think he wants to go down with an injury, which is how he ended the season. Ironically enough, that injury was suffered at the hand of the Houston Texans game about halfway through the season this year. And look, I think this makes a lot of sense for the Texans. And everyone is very critical of the Texans' offensive line, and rightly so. They finished with surrendering a top 5 in terms of sacks given up over the course of the season after finishing outside the top 10 in 2023. That ain't going to cut it, especially when you've got an outstanding quarterback in CJ Stroud. The Texans have already made big changes, firing Slowick, firing their offensive line coach. So to me, it aligns perfectly with the Texans' strategy of change here to bring in some new players, some new blood on the offensive line. And I always have a rule of thumb. If you have a veteran team that's vying for a title, you can supplement with rookies because you got a strong culture, you got strong leaders. The Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens are great examples of this. If you're a young kind of upstart team, you want to supplement with veterans, right? Because your culture is newer. You've got younger players. Nothing against Ryans or Stroud or any of these guys, but you want to bring in guys that have been, quality established players in the National Football League to address your short-term needs. And that Texans going after a guy like Zack Martin fits that bill perfectly. I know a lot of people want the Texans to go heavy O-line in the draft, and that's still not a bad strategy. But the reality is you need immediate help, you need reliable help, and I think an acquisition of Martin would be the perfect move to get it done. And you wouldn't have to give up a whole lot for it, because right now the Cowboys, in terms of how they've structured Zack Martin's contract, they've basically set him up to be a post-June 1st veteran release for salary cap purposes. So the Texans have two options here. You can wait everybody out after the 1st of June, wait out all free agency in the draft to see if maybe they pick up Zack Martin, or they make a trade for him early, get him on a team-friendly deal, and Dallas in return is able to get something. And you wouldn't have to give up a lot because Dallas is most likely going to release them. We're talking 4th-round pick at the most, right? Probably something more like maybe a 5th and a 7th round swap, which the Cowboys would be happy to take because they get something in return for Martin, right? Because at this point, they're most likely going to try and cut him again for salary cap purposes. I think the Texans make this trade, and moves like these are kind of the under the radar ones that will have a huge impact. I think right now this Texans team is a lot closer to a title than people want to give them credit for. Some injuries at wide receivers certainly hurt them, but the offensive line having some issues and inconsistencies there has to get fixed, and acquiring Martin could solve that biggest problem.
Yeah, Nick, I think that's absolutely. And you look at what this Texan team has. Defense, he's got the defense going. I think that this defense is really in a great spot. You have two great edge rushers. You have great corners. I think D'Amico Ryans is going to get the linebacker situation to where it needs. It just needs a little bit more coaching. I think the defense is in a really good spot, a top 10 spot actually per PFF. So when you look at the offense, they've been all right as well as far as the skill positions go. You have some bright spots. But C.J. Stroud, he needs the protection. He needs the time. The left side of the line, they've been doing okay. Laramie Tunzel is obviously great. Titus Howard at left guard has been pretty good. But once you start to go from left to right, the scale slides tremendously. Each time you move over, the level of play drops consistently. Patterson at center has been okay. Mason at right guard really fell off this year. He's had his worst season this year of his entire career, actually, but he's been sliding since that 2021 season where he had such a high level of play. So Mason, barely passable there at the right guard. Fisher, while young, was really bad this year at right tackle, grading out at a 44.7. So I think a guy like Zack Martin coming over really solves a major issue for this Houston Texans squad, being able to get some, like you said, young team, veteran leadership across the offensive line, help train up some of those other guys, give them the work ethic. Zack Martin is a tremendously talented player, but I think Martin would add another level to this line that is needed to give C.J. Stroud enough time. We know he's talented. We know when he has the time, he can make incredible plays. Absolutely amazing player. We just need to get him the protection. I think Zack Martin would be the perfect fit to do just that.